course, we begin here at home, where the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, said the country has turned the bend with the worst of its economic challenges now behind it. Speaking during a visit to the President's Lagos residence, Bagudu, accompanied by the Finance Minister, predicted an improved economic conditions by 2025, citing tough measures already taken. Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister for the Economy, Wale Edun, highlighted the success of President Bola Tinubu's economic diplomacy, particularly with Saudi Arabia. Edun, who led a delegation to Saudi Arabia that included the Central Bank of Nigeria governor and members of the Presidential Economic Coordination Council on what he describes as a follow-up visit, noted that the president's visits around the world are yielding positive results for FDI, trade, among others. Edun also reaffirmed the government's commitment to tackling inflation, especially food prices, through ongoing agricultural initiatives.
On the bend, I think we have taken the top choices. We have seen maybe where we have seen the worst we could see. And not unexpected, that is why social protection was improved. So what we are expecting to see in 25 is better economic, lower inflation, more employment opportunities, more support for businesses, more infrastructure development, more funding of security and better security, and all those priority areas, human capital development, education, health. We are sure to see more in that direction, and the quality of life will get better.
We all went really to follow up on the economic diplomacy, the incisive, robust, and of course, exhaustive economic diplomacy that His Excellency Mr. President has carried out around the world, on all the continents, whether it's South America, Brazil, whether it's Asia, China, India, Europe, Germany, France, everywhere. It was in continuation as a follow-up to ensure that the inroads and successes that he has made with, in this case, in Saudi Arabia, the burgeoning, developing relationship with His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. You all know, and we all heard, that Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Agricultural Livestock Investment Company, has just around the 23rd of December increased its investment in Olam by a $1.2 billion additional investment. So it is that type of transaction that Mr. President has taken the steps of stabilizing the Nigerian macroeconomic environment to encourage such and to attract such. And of course, that is an example of the success of the strategy followed by Mr. President. And what we have brought back is foreign exchange. What we have brought back is jobs for Nigerians. If you look at the demographics of Saudi Arabia, to the extent that they are investing abroad, they are not going to be exporting their people. They're not like some of the other big populous countries of Asia. So clearly, where they invest, that is jobs for Nigerians. So that's the simplest way I would put it. Of course, the Olam transaction was a long time in the works. It was first discussed, I remember, or we first discussed it at the first business council last year that was held in Saudi Arabia. But once again, the simplest way to put it is that the proof of the pudding is definitely in the eating. And when you see jobs being created, foreign reserves of Nigeria being added to, that is success that all Nigerians can understand, notwithstanding the fact that Mr. President is keen and is committed to reducing inflation, particularly food inflation, making food more affordable and available. We're in the middle of tri-season farming. Every effort is being made to ensure that we have a bountiful dry season harvest. We bring down the price of food, we bring down inflation, the cost of living for the average Nigerian.
Well, they say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. I know everybody is always keen to know and understand what are the tangible deliverables of all these trips that the president makes. So your take on this?
Absolutely. So the first positive thing about this visit, so it was a report following a follow-up visit to Saudi Arabia. Recall that earlier this year, the president had gone to Saudi Arabia on an economic diplomatic visit. And part of what we often talk about when they come back from these visits is, what did you bring back? What are the tangible, like you mentioned, gains from this particular visit? Also, one other thing we talk about is, follow-up. Being able to ensure that conversations that begin don't end there, end in agreements or signing of or MOUs and then no follow-up. That's one of the criticisms and one of the things we had charged this particular administration. So one positive thing is to see that there's actually follow-up that's happened with the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy leading a high-power delegation of Nigerians to Saudi Arabia to follow up and to actually consolidate on some of the gains of the previous visit by the president. Now, in this conversation, of course, the star attraction here is the $1.2 billion investment in Olam Agri company based here in Nigeria. The three things he said that they were able to get out of this deal is, number one, they're able to get investment, foreign exchange, which we've often talked about, so for that much needed foreign currency, and then jobs. Important. I'm glad I highlighted. However, what he didn't quite do was detail, aside from the Olam transaction, how many jobs, potentials in terms of numbers, what other areas, because he went with other ministers, he met with the Exim Bank in Saudi Arabia, he met with their own counterpart ministers in energy, in other sectors. So it'd be great to see beyond agriculture what other things we have been able to achieve. But let's celebrate the $1.2 billion. The road to achieving a $4 trillion nominal GDP by 2035, as this administration has said, is now on the road. Beyond that is also the importance of agriculture. We've often said that if we're going to get revenue from non-oil sector, we're going to have to be very serious about attracting investment in the agricultural sector along the entire value chain. And the fact that at the moment we're not optimizing it yet. So this is good news. I recall during the budget, when we're discussing the budget provisions and proposal for 2025, I'd mentioned that the allocation for agriculture wasn't very impressive for a government that's really big on tackling food insecurity and also shoring up local produce for local farmers here in Nigeria. So this is really good news. What this means is that there's going to be a partnership with the Saudi agricultural livestock investment company, also known as SALIC, and they're going to own a share of Olam Agri, the agricultural producing part of Olam. Even though Olam have said that they're going to still maintain over 60% of their shares, so they'll still remain the major shareholders. What this translates to is, of course, ensuring that much needed investment in that sector, jobs for Nigerians, because when you expand that sector, the agricultural sector could potentially be a big employer for many Nigerians, because the value chain, of course, we know it's immense, and of course, in terms of large numbers of people. So good news on this, but again, we continue to push that. At the end of the day, it's not just the reports we want to see until we begin when the money lands, when it begins to happen, and for us to follow through and to see other areas in which investment has come into Nigeria. Very important. But on this one, good note.
Okay, what is the context of this narrative? The Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, the Minister of Budget and Planning, Atiku Bagudu, they went to pay, if you like, Christmas, New Year homage to President Tinubu, who has been in Lagos since the first week of December to celebrate Christmas and New Year. And it was in the course of that the two gentlemen were accosted, and they made all these revelations. Now, Minister Bagudu said that worst economic challenges facing Nigeria are over. Well, I don't think many people will agree with them that the worst economic challenges facing Nigeria are over. Instead, more people will say that there will be more challenges in 2025, and that what they expect from the government is readiness in terms of how the Tinubu administration addresses those challenges. Challenges in terms of how they plan to bring down inflation to 15%, how they plan to address all the macroeconomic and fiscal omissions, in the budget 2025 as proposed. Now, the media, the the State House correspondents also spoke with Minister Edun, and he was saying, oh, there is hope in the air, a lot of optimism, and that economic diplomacy is beginning to yield results. And it was in that context that he said, look, they are making a lot of progress with job creation, with foreign exchange earnings, and also with investments. And that was when he cited the example of the Saudi Agricultural Livestock Company. You know, the president had been to Saudi Arabia, met with the Crown Prince, Sheikh Salman, and there were promises made. So on the surface of it, we encourage the fact that there's follow-up. I have said on this table that the Foreign Affairs Ministry has been too indolent, not just now, also in the past, in terms of follow-up, in terms of follow-through. So at least this is one example in which Minister Wale Edun is saying, oh, we went back to Saudi Arabia to see how we can follow through on all of this. And the fruit is the encounter, the investment of $1.2 billion in the Olam Agro Holdings Limited. Where we have heard from Minister Edun, we have not had, Olam Holding, Agri Holdings saying that, oh, this investment is as a result of President Tinubu going to Saudi Arabia. But whatever that means, the fact that there is that interest is important. Now, we would also like to see the fructification of the trips to other countries. France, Brazil, which the president mentioned, during his presidential media chat, and he said he's making arrangements to bring 2,000 tractors. But it won't be just about bringing mechanized farming. It will be about the output that the people see. Definitely, Minister Edun is very right to say that when these investments come in, there will be job creation for Nigerians. And he went for that to say the taste of the pudding is in the eating. Yes, that pudding. Well, if you do a random check among Nigerians, what are they eating? What have they seen? Because inflation is still high, the unemployment rate is still very high, and Nigerians are hoping that in 2025, there will be greater productivity within the economy. And that pudding that Minister Edun says the president has provided, we will begin to see them, either from Brazil or China or the UAE or Germany or France, that the president visited as the chief foreign policy officer of the country. However, in the report that I read, there was a kind of counterpoint by the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, which is the leading economic summit group in this country, if I may say so. The last time Arise News met with the NESG, I asked the leaders of the team, what have you people done apart from being a think tank, a talk shop? They said they've influenced policies in this country. They outlined the policies. Well, fine. I grant them that. The same NESG is saying that this economy is underperforming, and that to achieve the target of $4 trillion, economic growth by 2025, this economy has to perform. And performing will mean including non-oil export growth. It will mean double-digit growth. The World Bank is putting us at a GDP growth for 2025 of about 3.4%. Even the budget 2025 our proposal says 3.4 or thereabouts. Okay, that's not good enough for Nigerians. Those are the things that the government will need to worry about. The NESG also says we will need over $3.4 billion budget performance on an annual basis. So you can argue with some of the details that the NESG has provided, but what it means is that Nigeria is not yet there. No matter the amount of masturbatory chest beating that President Tinubu's economic managers engage in. The common denominator that I hear from those who know this subject, the economic analysts and the researchers, is that in 2025, there should be greater productivity in this economy. And that productivity, you can look at it from different angles. So no masturbation. No, that would not be right. It is to focus on the key challenges.
All right, very quickly, I'll bring everything together, especially with points made by the Nigeria Economic Summit, alongside projections about the worst of the economic challenges being over. Now, this is all the activities, engagement with Saudi Arabia and all other foreign countries is supposed to be on the road to creating a 4 trillion naira economy by 2035. NESG went as far as saying that by 2035, they expect the GDP per capita to be 14,000 US dollars. Now, let's just put things in perspective. At the moment, we're looking at a per capita GDP of $1,600 here in Nigeria with a $487 billion economy. Why do I highlight this? I highlight this because this makes an assumption that our current population is 300 million people, because your GDP and your GDP per capita are related. So if these are the statistics we're using, there's a challenge. So for me, my point that I'd like to make this morning is that, yes, there has been confirmation that a population census is being planned and is being worked on. However, we're not seeing enough advocacy going into the new year, because economic policy is just theory if we do not back it with the data, if we don't back it with the accurate statistics, especially in the form of a population census. So we can beat our chests all we like and say the investment is coming, we've planned, we've turned the corner and so forth. But if we don't even know the number of heads inside this country called Nigeria, then we're really just doing theory. We haven't moved to the practical part of our economics yet.